Hello and welcome to this Blender tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you the basics of how to create really good looking fire in Blender. And you may have seen some of my videos lately. I've been messing around with the Blender Fire Simulator. And I found a couple really good tutorials on how to make fire, and mostly it's the material that matters. And Blender HD actually had a very good tutorial on this, and I wanted to give a shot at my own tutorial on it, because I do a few things differently than he does. And so here I have finished simulation that I did, and it looks like this. So as you can see, this is a very high resolution animation. You have very detailed flames, you have detailed fire, and the thing that you notice the most is the material of it. The fire looks more real than some of my other fire simulations that I've done previously. Mostly it's because I realized that fire is clear at the bottom. It's a liquid, and well, it's not I don't know what it's called, but it's clear at the bottom. And the material, if you make it more transparent, it will look a lot better. But in order to do this, in order to get it to look like that, you need to have a very, very high resolution image, high resolution simulation, and so that will be the downfall of that. If your computer can't handle something like that, you might have trouble with this tutorial. But for this tutorial, keep in mind that if you want to get a result like this, you expect to have at least a 3 GB cache from it. And have it take about, I don't know, for me it took maybe 4 hours to bake, and I rendered it in about, I don't know, 3 hours. So it takes a long time, but it's worth it. But yeah, just know that it will require a lot of computing power, and it will probably make your computer worthless, useless for a couple of hours. But anyways, let's get started on how to do that. So we're in Blender 2.66. I think what I'm doing today will be, you can do this in any 2.6 version. I'm not sure, but I recommend getting the latest version of Blender from the blender.org website. So in Blender, we have this cube to start. And a cool new feature in Blender 2.6 is that they gave you the option to do what's called quick smoke, which Blender or the developers have made it so that you can quickly set up a smoke simulation, and it makes it so much easier. Makes it so much easier on us, and I can show you how to do that right now. Just press spacebar and just start typing in quick, and you'll see we have quick smoke, fur, explode, fluid, but we're gonna do smoke in this tutorial. And so it will add you your own domain, and it will make this cube the emission. So if we were to animate it right now with Alt-A, you'll see that we have that. Well, give me a second to turn on my screencast keys. Sorry about that. I had to change something. Okay, and so you'll see that we now have an emitter and a domain, and it's emitting smoke. And let's just scale down. Let's right-click this cube and scale it down. Let me close some things. Scale it down, grab it with G. Why is my computer being so slow? Okay. And if you animate it, it'll be like that. That's kind of boring. So we're going to change things up a little bit. We can actually now, in Blender 2.6, make this domain a different shape. As you can see right now, it's a rectangle, and they have made it so that it doesn't have to be a cube anymore for the simulation to work well. Before, if you tried to scale the domain, it would make the smoke, it would also scale the smoke, and it would end up giving you really weird results. But what you see I did there is I just made the domain wider and moved our cube to the side of it, and we're going to add in a force field, Shift A, add force field wind, and rotate it on the y-axis, I don't know, 90 degrees. Okay, and just drag it over, and go to the force field settings right here, and turn up the strength to like 5. So now if we play it, you'll see that it's kind of being affected here. So we can change the strength up a little bit, maybe like 15, see what that does. Okay, so now you can see that we have the force field affecting the smoke in our scene, which is cool. But say this was a really big simulation. What you can do to make the smoke look like it's more of a larger scale is increase the flow value. Say you increase that to 5, it makes the smoke, I guess, flow slower, and it just gives a better look if you're trying to do something like I don't know, a building on fire or something. Let's actually increase the strength a little bit more. It's rising too much. That's good. Okay. And also the flow will give you more of like a slow motion effect, and that will look cool if you're, doing that kind of thing. Okay. Now we're going to set up our domain. And if you look over here, and when you select the domain, you see that we have all these settings. And at first you may be like, okay, what is all this? But it's actually fairly simple. You have the divisions, which is the base resolution for your simulation, and we're going to leave it at 32 for now. We'll change that later. Density, if you lower this value, it will make your smoke sink more, and if you increase it, it's going to rise more. I don't mess with that much. I mean, maybe it could be used for like a fog simulation or something, but I don't really use that very much. Temperature difference, I don't use much either. It's very similar to density, and vorticity is cool. It will result in more, what does it say? More turbulence in the fluid. So if you increase that to like 3, the smoke, when it's more high res, you'll be able to see that it moves more. And you'll see we have these smoke flames options now. And you won't be able to do anything with that right now, because we don't have flames turned on. But unlike before when we had to make a material for the flames, you can easily do that now by right-clicking your emitter and make the flow type from smoke to either fire or fire and smoke. For this, we're going to do fire and smoke. So now if you start it over, you'll see that we now have fire and smoke in our simulation. Pretty cool. But you can see that it is rising again too much. The force field isn't affecting it enough. So instead of increasing our force field power again, we're going to lower this density to like negative 0.1. Let's see what that does. Okay, it makes it go a little bit more to the right. We'll increase it to maybe negative 0.15. And there we go. Now it's lower than it was before. But you can see that our flame is very low right now. Nothing's happening much. So we can increase the length of the flames by increasing this flame rate value. Increase it to like 3, and the flames will be much larger. But let's increase this to 5 because everybody likes big flames. Okay, so there's a lot more flame in our scene. There's a couple more settings that you can do with the emitter. We're gonna mess with the emitter now. If you want a particle system to be your emitter, you can do that. But I recommend just using the mesh settings. It looks much better than a particle system for some reason. With a particle system, it takes longer to bake because it goes by individual particles, but the mesh flow source is much better. I don't know why. I don't know the math behind it, but it looks a lot better than a particle system, because with a particle system, you need to have a ton of particles for it to have this full effect. So I recommend using mesh as your flow source. Also, we have initial velocity. If you enable that, it will make it so that it goes off of the source differently. So if this source value, it says source is the source velocity past the smoke. So if you do it like 2, it'll come off of the source at a higher rate. But that's not very noticeable. We'll change it back to 1. But normal, if you increase that, it's going to go off of our cube a little bit more random. And right now, it's not very noticeable, but if we were to tab into edit mode and press subdivide smooth with W and subdivide smooth, we'll get more faces and more random sides, and you'll see now that we have normal selected. It's going off a little more randomly, but if we increase it to like 2, you'll really be able to see it. You can see that we have some smoke coming off like that. But anyways, that is that. Let's say this as something like fire toot. Okay, because you have to save these. And now that's all our settings for our emitter. Let's go back to our domain. We have something really cool in Blender 2.6 now as a result of Google Summer of Code, and it's called Smoke Adaptive Domain. Enable that, and basically it'll scale down a smaller domain so that your simulation will run faster. And you can see I'm getting 30 FPS right now at the beginning of my animation because the domain is smaller, it has less to calculate. And this is very, very useful if you're testing out like resolution of your image. So if we were to double this to 64, now that we have adaptive domain enabled, you can see that 1, our normal value is way too high, and 2, it's a lot faster. But we need to turn down our normal value. My goodness, that's way too much. That's what normal does. It was making that like kind of steam looking effect where everything's really jumping off the surface of the emitter. Okay, so that's cool. But again, our smoke is rising too much. We don't want that. So let's lower the density to like -0.3 and play that. Much better. Looks kind of like a flamethrower. Alright, couple more things. We're going to go down to Smoke Cache, and you'll see that we have this all set up. This you have to do. Smoke Cache is it's called baking the animation, and when you bake the animation or the simulation, it saves it onto your computer as raw data, and that data is very large. So say we don't want a whole 250 frames of this animation because 1, that would take a very, very long time to render, to bake, and to render, and 2, you can get a pretty lot of information just from say 100 or 150 frames. So we don't want this to bake from 1 to 250. We want it to bake from maybe 1 to 150. That will still give you good animation. We'll also change our timeline to end at 150. Alright, and so one thing you're going to do when you go to start your final bake is enable Smoke High Resolution. And for my final video that I showed you at the beginning, I think I had resolution at 152 and my high resolution at 2 and the noise method at wavelet. You can change it to FFT. It will give you a different kind of noise look. I like wavelet personally, and this end cache was about 3 gigabytes. So yeah, it'll take a while. It'll use a lot of memory, but once you render these simulations, if you don't want to look at them again, if you don't want to, I don't know, make another view or another angle of your render, you can always just go back and delete the files that it creates because, yeah, it will take up a lot of space on your hard drive. Okay, so don't press Alt-A now because it will take a very, 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 very long time to render. But if we were to bake this right now, it would look cool. It would give us a nice effect. But we'll do that later. I want to show you how to set up the material now. So if we go to Material, it'll see that we no longer, because of this awesome quick smoke thing that we did at the beginning, we no longer have to go in and set up volume and make the density 0. It does that all for us now, which is really neat. It saves a lot of time. But I'm going to walk you through a couple steps of, couple aspects of these materials that they give you and basically show you what they do. So first we have the cube and the volume. It's a volume material and the density is 0, and basically the texture on this makes it so that the smoke is our density. So we'll see how that looks in a second. Density scale is basically how dense the smoke is. If you were to increase this to 100, the smoke would look very thick, and that works very well for high resolution just smoke simulations. But I found that when you're trying to work with fire, if you increase that to like say 100, it gives you a lot of problems with the fire, making the fire look transparent. And so I recommend for fire simulations, you put this at something like 2, which will let you have lighter, more brighter, it will give you brighter fire and more transparent fire, and your smoke will still look okay. Actually, if you go, I don't know, look at a campfire, a bonfire or something, you notice that the fire is the most prominent thing. The smoke is very transparent and wispy. So density scale, you could lower that even more, but I actually haven't found a way yet to make the smoke look transparent enough as to where it looks like a campfire or a bonfire. I'll keep experimenting with that, and maybe later I'll release a material for that or something on BlendSwap. Okay, we also have scattering, which is similar to density scale in that it basically, like it says, it limits how much light will penetrate. I don't mess with that. You can mess around with all these settings if you want to see what they do. But then we have lighting and light cache. Light cache is very important. Say you disable this. Basically, the resolution now isn't 50. It's unlimited. If you were to increase this to like 100 or something, you'll notice that your render will take a lot longer to render, but you will get much more detailed smoke, and mostly smoke. It doesn't really make the fire look that much better. I kept this at 50 for my final render, but if I were doing like a smoke simulation or something, I would definitely increase this resolution to something like, I don't know, 120 or something like that. But again, it will take, as it says, a lot more memory and a lot longer to render. Then we have step size. Instead of 0.1, 0.1 for one, no pun intended, it will give you a very pixelated result when you finally render. It will give you noise, and basically that's what this is. It limits the amount of noise that will be in your image. You can point this at 0.0125. That's what I put my final thing at, and I find that it doesn't give you any noticeable noise, but it also makes the render not as slow as if you were to put it at something like 0.001 or something, which will give you like perfect results, but will take forever to render. And also the step size. Lowering this is very important for getting the transparent look in our smoke, because you can have the material perfect, but this can be too high and everything will not look right. It will look too dark. So you have to make sure that this value is low, or else everything we're going to do next will not work. So next we're going to go into textures, and we see that we have these textures already set up, and again, this is really nifty. It saves us a lot of time. There's not much we have to do in our smoke density texture. That's mostly all set up for us. What we're going to mess with is the flame. Our flame is right now not looking very good. You can see that it has these materials here. Oops, I accidentally deleted one. And frankly, they're not very good. But before we go mess with this color ramp, which is the core of our look for our flame, we're going to mess with a couple other things. Mostly right here, voxel data format. We're going to change the source. Well, the source is at flame. Before we had to change it to like heat or velocity or something, but now they even have a thing for flame, which is really helpful, and it actually gives us a lot better results than what we had to do before. Interpolation, I find is better, like Blender HD said, to change it to quadratic. It gives you a better looking end to your color. And then also, if you were to increase this intensity to like 1.3 or something like that, it'll give you brighter smoke. This material will be brighter fire, so it'll look good. Mission color, you can also change to like 1.25, and it'll look a lot better. it'll make it more colorful and brighter. Emission is how much light it emits, and it will be brighter if you increase it, but I recommend just keeping it at 5 for now. But now we have this ramp, and oh gosh, the base ramp is so bad. So let's just delete basically everything except for the end value, which is fine, and the beginning value. Okay, a couple things. We want to start out clear, so change this one to a black and lower the alpha all the way to 0. So we're going to start and end clear. Then we're going to add in another ramp thingy and move it closer to this end one. And this one is going to be pure white, and it's going to be, I don't know, an alpha 0.4 or something. Okay. Add in another one. This one is going to be a peach color. Make it pure white and peachy. And make the alpha 0.45. Okay. Now, we're going to add in another one. This is just us setting up our ramp. We're going to make this one an orangish, a red-orangish color. Make the alpha the same as the other one, 0.45. And now add in one more and make it pure white and kind of a red-orange color. And alpha at 0.4. So we start out completely with nothing. Go to white, like the white flames in the base of a thing. We go to light color, darker color, red color, and we fade out to black. And now that material will give you a very good result. And yeah, everything's transparent because fire is, it's transparent. It's not solid. It's not like smoke. And so if we were to render this, I mean, right now, nothing would happen. But if you were to render out your animation as something that you could render, we'd see a result. But before you do that, one important thing that you have to do, and that's the lighting. This smoke, I don't know how to do it correctly. You're supposed to have the flames be the ones emitting the light in the scene, but I haven't found a good way to render that with only that light. So I use this lighting. I use a couple of suns. And so I take this lamp, go to the light settings, make it a sun, and make it pointing the thing. Move it out. It's way too close. Rotate it. Just make it pointing to it. The lighting is not super important. Well, no, it is. But yes, you don't have to make it super fancy or something like that. Lower the energy of it to 0.8 and duplicate it. You need well lit smoke, or else there's basically just gonna be black areas of smoke. So here I'm just duplicating it, lowering the intensity of this one. Duplicate it again, rotate it. We could do a track 2 constraint for this, but I'm just too lazy right now. And now one more. So we got a bottom light. Now I'm going to do a backlight. We'll actually have this one, Control T, track to constraint. And we'll have it be a backlight pointing directly at the camera. Which, by the way, we can move the front view. So go to front view by pressing 1 on your numpad and press Control Alt 0, and that will snap your camera to the front view. And this guy, this light back here, can be directly there. And that will light our smoke well enough. Okay, so now I'm going to pause this as I get it to a frame where you can see what I'm talking about better. I'll pause this. You go ahead and render yours if you want. You don't have to, but I'd like to see, if you do get a good result from this tutorial, feel free to render it out and, show me your final result as a video response. I'd love to see it. So, I'll be right back. Oops, I'm sorry, I forgot to actually say how to go about baking your animation. All you have to do is make sure you got everything selected, make sure your scene is saved, and click Bake All Dynamics, and that will bake your scene. So, be right back. Okay, and we're back, and Obviously, I didn't let mine bake for very long, maybe 5 minutes. But you can see that we have the beginnings of a very awesome looking fire simulation. And I'm going to end it here, and my simulation here. And right now, Blender will not let me pan around the viewport at all. So you're really going to want to be careful with what you do. One way you can fix this, okay, it's back. Turn off Show High Resolution, and you'll be able to actually view your simulation. You're now going to render this. Press F12, save it first. F12. And we'll see what everything is looking like. And alright. That looks very cool. Right? Alright. There's one thing we can do. Obviously, it looks like our material might be a little off. We could lower some of the reds in this. But you can see that we have some really bright spots here. It starts off white. Everything's looking great. But we can go into our compositing settings here. Go to compositing. And we can do a few things that will make this final render look a lot better. So we're going to click Use Nodes and make this the render result. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's actually go to our world settings, change the horizon color to black. Having a black background for a fire simulation makes it look a lot better. It'll make the flames stand out a lot more, and it looks good. Okay. Great, that looks awesome. Okay. We're going to Shift A, add color RGB curves. And we're just going to bump up just a little bit our brights. Okay. Not too much. Don't do too much with this. Don't mess with these colors at all. I found that if you do, you'll regret it later because you'll be like rendering, you'll be like, oh wow, that looks great. And then your composite will like kick in and it will just crush all of the awesome color that you get in the simulation. So don't mess with the RGB, just the brightness. And we're also going to add in where is it? Filter glare. And it's going to be a fog glow. And the threshold should be like 0.2. That will make it so that only the bright areas, not the smoke. The smoke won't glow with that at 0.2. If it's at 0, everything's going to glow. You don't want everything to glow though. Put it at 0.2 and you're good. Increase the mixed value a little bit just so you don't get so much of a glow. And decrease the size. You just want a slight glow. Yeah, not even, you don't want to bursting at the edges. You just want it to be a little bit brighter. And that already looks a lot better if we render the original one. I will show you the difference between the before and after the composite. And this is a great way to make your final scene look a lot better. A lot more professional. Alright, so we don't want to view the composite, so let's see the render layer. So this is what we had originally. This is the composite. Originally, composite. So you see the composite brings out the bright values and makes everything not as flat. In fact, we might actually want to just decrease this a little bit. Might be a little too bright. Same thing with this. We can increase the mix value. Might be getting a little too bright for my taste. But yeah, right now that's looking great. And obviously, I'd need to render the full thing out again. But right now, as it stands, this animation could be baked out and rendered, and it would look great. So, okay, thanks for watching this tutorial. I know, gosh, what am I at? Half an hour? Gosh, this is the longest tutorial I've ever done. Thanks for watching this. Hope you learned something. This is a really, really cool new feature in Blender, and, well, it's not new, but these methods of doing things are new, and I have been able to get a lot better results from the use of these materials. And obviously, you can do a lot more with this. You can make blue fire, you can make green fire, you can make mixing fire. You just have to mess with the material ramp that we made. But yeah, thanks for watching. My name is Ben Morgan, and if you like this video, please subscribe.